Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning LaLa. And on this hashtag Thought Thursday, it's an absolute honor to welcome one of today's most successful, undoubtedly renowned entertainers, really. I'm so excited, Carlos Mencia. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on this day. That's a good day. It's a great day.
It is a great day.
Yeah.
You know, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and you say right on your Instagram profile,
right,
if you're not laughing, you're
right,
not living.
Well, you know what? Too many people take the world so seriously, and it's what you were talking about earlier about living in the past. I've been doing this for 31 years, so I've had so many peaks and valleys and ebbs and flows and what people say. But to me, it's just, different moments in life. I don't see one moment as I was down and getting up, or I was up and getting down. I just see those as different times and being able to see the world from a different place. I think that right now, especially, we're so driven by negativity, and it's difficult to stay away from it. I mean, right now, 99.9% of people watching who post something can say, Carlos is amazing, he's great, and I'll go through those, and then one person will say something negative, and it's almost like those letters are bigger to my soul. It's just like, you're horrible, and then all of a sudden, like, everybody who said something nice becomes insignificant, and at that moment, it's all like, why, what, and all this energy goes to that one person. And for me, it's more about that moment is like, okay, sorry you feel that way. Is there anything I could do to change your mind about how you feel? No, then ignore it and push it aside, and let me go back to the love and the happiness and the people that I made feel good. But it's training. It's hard because, you want to go to that place when somebody tells you, oh, you're wearing that today? You're like, what? What's wrong with what I'm wearing? As opposed to, yeah, I am. And, when you've lived long enough, you've seen enough experiences. So I take from life moments. So I remember a friend of mine, I was hanging out, and somebody said to him, you're wearing that today? And he said, let me ask you a question. Do you think what you're wearing is amazing? And he said, yeah. He said, oh, so now I have your perspective of what you think is great. And then that was it. Wow. And it was his way of saying to me, like, oh, this is what you like, great. This is what I like, awesome, cool. And he moved on, and I went, what a genius move! Like, I've been waiting for this for all my life, So there are little moments like that that help me at pivotal moments in time to stay positive and to stay healthy and to not go into the doldrums of, why is the show not sold out? What's happening? I haven't had a special in a few years. All that stuff that gets in your head.
But that's one of the stigmas attached to a comedian, where, they're known to be very funny, but there's really this sadness in them. It's a stigma around it. But I think that that's probably the defining line between a real true expert and a professional versus not, as someone who's really understood that it's all, you got to embrace the dark and the light, right?
Yeah, but to us, it's not dark. I mean, to me, it's not dark. It's just life. It's just moments. It's, I'm one of 18 children. So
what? Wow.
I'm the 17th born of 18 kids, right?
Wow.
So my father's favorite thing, if he was here right now, he'd be laughing, going, your mother never has periods, she just had people. And, and everybody laughs. And, it's so interesting because everything that we do as human beings affect us. But for me, none of that stuff is dark. All the stories about my mom disciplining me, I make people laugh at that stuff, and to me, it's funny. I don't dislike my mother for any of those stories. I mean, I'm 17th born. When I was a kid, I remember I used to get preventative butt whoopings, which was my mom just didn't have time. So right before we would go into Kmart, she would look at me and say, don't do anything, don't say anything, don't ask for anything, don't embarrass me. And then she'd smack me on the head. And I would be like, I didn't do anything. And she'd say, then don't do it. And we'd go in there and do it. At the time, I was like, that is so not cool. Now when I look at it and go, she had 18. She knew. She knew I was going to do something. So she's like, I'm just going to stop this now. And now I see the humor in it. But beyond that, I see her struggles, how difficult it was for her. I can't even imagine. I have two. And 16 more?
Wow.
How did this woman do that? And none of us are addicted to drugs. None of us are in jail. One of us is a recovering alcoholic. We all have, pretty much decent lives, and we're doing okay. 18.
Good job.
Wow.
18, right? Yeah. So I as a comedian see those moments and want to brighten them up because I want to show people, like, look, you know, we're all going to make mistakes. My mother was not a perfect woman. My dad is not a perfect man, but they tried their best. And so within their mistakes, if I can see something funny and bring it out and have somebody that's in the audience who might think, man, my parents were blank, 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 and then go, my mom did the same thing, you know. My mom had 8. I thought that was a lot. I'm like, it is a lot. Just because I have 18 doesn't mean 8 is not a lot. 8 is, I know 18 is a lot. Even when I go to Utah and I'm around Mormons, like Latter-day Saints are like, how many? That's when I know it's a lot.
Right.
But
It's
just
brilliant,
off on
because
that.
if you think about emotion, really can't stay in place unless you have a meaning around whatever
Right.
for it to have an emotion. And I think that comedies, it really is a healing, and we've proven this now in science that
Yes.
that laughter is healing.
It is. You can, you know, I tell people, because I like to go on long. That's like one of the things, you know, I rarely do 45 minutes. I usually do an hour and 15, an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And I tell people at the end of the show, because I can feel there's this energy, right? So for about an hour and 10 minutes, everybody's ready to laugh. Then for about 10 minutes, their bodies kind of physically shut down a little bit. They're hurting, literally physically a little painful, because it's almost a 1 hour workout of laughing cheeks. And you can feel it. And then about 10, 15 minutes later, it ramps up again, and then they get a second boost of energy. But at that point, they're in a frame of mind of tranquil, like easiness, because I've done so many different types of jokes of emotional content that has led them to places that they thought they might not be able to laugh at, and they did. So at that moment, I tell everybody, I know you guys are ultra happy right now. I go, you want the show to end? 2 hours, and they're like, no. I'm like, listen, it's only because you're laughing. I know there's people in this room that had pains and aches when you came in here, and you don't feel them right now. And I can literally see the eyes of people going, yeah, I don't feel this. I had it right. I go, it's coming back in about 10 minutes after the show. And after the show, you know, they walk out and they go, it's back. I'm like, no.
Gotta book another show.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta come back with the doctor. But it's fun to watch.
Absolutely, and it's a true art to be able to not only like manipulate the audience and the crowd, but the energy in
Yeah.
a way that is so healing. Has that been the most rewarding part of the journey for you?
Yeah, the hardest part today is that, you know, today we're not divided as much as defensive. And the country in and of itself is pretty much what it used to be 20 years ago. The difference is the crazy 12 to 14% of the voices on both extremes are the loudest. And the people like us rarely, you know, if we were right now screaming and yelling and throwing out negativity and saying this is the reason your life is horrible and these are the people that make your life bad, whoever those people are, the people watching would be like, yeah, I'm angry, but we're not, right? We're saying love, this is a great day, mindfulness. This calm is the norm. It's just that we're not loud. Look at how we're talking about this. We're talking about happiness. We're talking about joy. We're talking about tranquility. We're talking about oneness with the universe. And we're not screaming. That's the problem. We're in the new America, we're supposed to be going,
Well, let's go viral. Let's go viral right now. 1.2. I hate you. Let's go.
Exactly,
It's like
right?
one of those talk shows.
But no, but the thing is, we're the norm. This is we are by far the norm. People just don't get that because it's the extremes that seem to be screaming the loudest. So I have to contend as a comedian with somebody who's going to be adverse to a joke about something that they defend way before they even know what it's about. So it didn't used to be that way. You know, today I'll say something like, oh, and our president, and you'll just hear some people, oh, you don't even know what I'm going to say. Like, I could have said he's the best ever. I have to disarm people in my act before I can take them on a journey. At first, I got to put on a seatbelt and do all this stuff and tell them exits are here and there. And then when they feel safe, then I can actually do a joke about it.
It's profound to me. I mean, I'm so inspired by your gift as a comedian and as an artist. I think I'm even more inspired by this ability to like embrace this non-defensiveness, non-judgment, and non-resistance, and to lean in and say yes and instead of but.
Right.
And I find that incredible that you developed that at such a young age and you just continue to cultivate that.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? It's because my dad is a philosopher. Like, he's a philosopher of life. He's not an educated man, but he always said things to me that resonated. That he said things to me when I was a kid that I did not understand. Like, one of the things he said to me is, whenever making a decision about life, think about yourself 3 times before you think about anybody else. And that is the most unselfish thing you could ever do. And I remember thinking at the time, well, wait a minute. If I'm going to think about myself 3 times, that's the most selfish thing. How is that unselfish? And he said, you'll understand. Well, when I started making money and taking care of my family, that's when I understood. I did all those things for me. I found my happiness. My family didn't want me to be a comedian. I was the first kid to get a degree in electrical engineering. My family was ready for me to be, you know, the prototypical immigrant son of an American who came to a university and made it. I started doing stand-up. My family had an intervention for me. They don't even know what that is. But I'm sitting around a bunch of people going, you're ruining your life. What is wrong with you? Please, you know. And I said to my dad, I go, Dad, you know, you're the most important person to me. What do you think? And thank God, there were so many people that he had started drinking a little bit. So by the time he got to me, he was not drunk, but he was nice buzzed. And I go, what do you think, Dad? And my dad goes, if you want to be a clown, Django. And I was like, yes. But that was my choice. It was for me. And I thought about myself 3 times. And once I took care of myself, I found that I had extra to take care of my family. And that's when I went, oh, wow, that's what he meant by this. So he was the one that always told me there's something more than just, you know, being a truck driver. And so
It's such an
you know what I mean?
important point.
Whatever
Your
it is.
happiness truly is your gift to the rest of the world.
But it's everybody's.
Yeah,
But it's everybody's.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it.
One's
You're,
happiness.
right?
Their
You're
gift to the world.
driving in the middle of anywhere. You're just a regular truck driver. Somebody's having a bad day at whatever that stop is where you're gonna go get gas. And you put a smile on that person's face. That person is affected, you know, for another, and then that person affects somebody else. And all those happy moments affect other people. And it's because, you know, we accept and take in, you know, the fact that we're connected. That connective human tissue. That's
How can people
the most
connect
amazing.
with you, follow you, whether it's on social media or come see your shows while you're in Southern
everything's at Carlos Mencia or / Carlos Mencia. But this weekend I'll be at the Brand Improv. It's a brand new club, so it's going to be great. And by the way, we are recording live, so I got to say this: don't come with somebody you do not want to be seen on camera. Because I've had that happen a couple of times. We're like, take a picture. No!
Well, thank you so
there you
much
go.
for all
No,
your
thank
wisdom.
you guys, man. I
Stay tuned.
appreciate
We'll
it.
be right back.